So now that the 2025 regular season has come to a close, we just got a full season sample size of the massive trades that went down in the 2024 offseason. So I thought this would be a good time to grade those trades 1 year later. I said this was going to be a mini series. A couple weeks ago, I did grade random trades that happened pretty much over the last 2 years. I still want to grade the big free agency signings of 2024, as well as see how the 2025 trade deadline, but that video will come after the playoffs because that has big implications on the deadline itself. So the first trade we're going to talk about happened right after free agency started. It was between two crosstown rivals, the New York Knicks and the Brooklyn Nets. This is the one that sent Mikal Bridges from Brooklyn to the Knicks. And for a short period of time in that 2024 offseason, the Knicks paired up the Nova Knicks together. And then there was another trade that happened later in the offseason that we'll get to later in this video that broke that up. But the Knicks in this trade received Mikal Bridges, Keita Bates-Diop, and a 2026 second round pick. The Nets received Bojan Bogdanovic, Shake Milton, 4 unprotected first round picks every other year starting in 2025, ending in 2031, an unprotected pick swap in 2028, and the Bucks first round pick in this 2025 draft, as well as a second rounder in the 25 draft as well. So we'll start off with the Brooklyn Nets side of things, and I'm going to give this trade 1 year later an A. This was the right direction that the Nets needed to head in. If you remember at that time, there was rumors they could go after Trae Young, they could go after Zach LaVine, maybe they were going to try to go all in after Donovan Mitchell after the Cavs lost to Boston, but no, they made the right decision, realizing no matter what star they got, they were not going to be competing with the other pieces they had on their team in the Eastern Conference, and they should enter into a proper rebuild because basically a decade prior, the Nets were one of the worst teams in the league after mortgaging their future for Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, and then Sean Marks leads them into a fantastic rebuild. They get Kyrie, they get KD in the offseason of 2019. A year later, they trade for James Harden, and then it all implodes over the next few seasons, but this was the right direction the Nets should head in. Maybe they could have lost a couple more games here in the 2025 season. We'll see if the lottery gods are on their side and can get them a Cooper Flagg or a top 3 pick in the draft, but that Bucks pick is going to be in the late teens right now. That Knicks pick is going to be in the late 20s, so I can't give them an A+ because we have no idea how they're going to use those picks. And honestly, there's a chance that the Knicks can stay competitive for the next 5 years. All these picks are going to be in the 20s as well, and they're not going to get like a blue chipper pick from this deal. But looking back on it, you got 5 first round picks and another pick swap for Mikal Bridges, who isn't a superstar player. That's a solid return. As for the New York Knicks, right now, I'm just going to give it a flat out C. This could go down to an F if the Knicks don't really achieve anything with Mikal Bridges, and then they're a bad team in 2031, and then they have to give Brooklyn a really good pick around that draft time. But if they win a title over the next few years with Mikal Bridges, then this would go up to an A+ 100%. But this year, Mikal Bridges was a fine player for the Knicks. He averaged 18 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists. He was efficient as well, 50% from the field, 35% from 3. The Knicks did not run the offense at all through Mikal Bridges, who they gave up 5+ first round picks for in the offseason prior. He rarely had the ball late in the game, and there was a stretch when Jalen Brunson was out with that ankle injury late in the regular season that Mikal Bridges was a little bit more aggressive, was running pick and rolls with Karl-Anthony Towns, and then once Brunson came back, we never saw that again. It's going to be a big playoffs for Mikal Bridges because if the Knicks lose in round number 1, or if he just has a really bad round 2 series, this is not going to age well, but it's just year 1 of the trade. This could definitely change over the course of time, and all the Knicks need to do is win a title, right? It's super easy, and that could be an A+ grade. Next one we're going to talk about was a deal that happened right before the 2024 draft, and it came out of left field. This was a deal between the Portland Trailblazers and the Washington Wizards. The Wizards sent Deni Avdija, who was a breakout player in the 2024 season, to Portland in return for Malcolm Brogdon, the 14th overall pick in that 2024 draft that was via the Golden State Warriors, as well as a 2039 first round pick that they got in the Drew Holiday trade. So I have to give this an A for the Portland Trailblazers. This was a home run trade for them as Deni continued his breakout season from 2024 into 2025. He actually got off to a really rough start this year, and people were maybe questioning the trade, or could he just be adjusting to a new environment? And it was the latter, as over the course of Deni's first year in Portland, he averaged 17 points, a career high, 7.3 rebounds, another career high, 4 assists, also a career high, 47% from the field, 36% from 3, 78% from the free throw line. The efficiency went down a little bit from the 2024 season with the Wizards, but the volume went up. He played around 30 minutes a night. He's still just 24 years old, and he could be a very good player offensively in Portland. And it helps out that he's surrounded by some solid defenders like Tumani Kamara and Donovan Clingan that can complement him on that end of the floor. And Deni is a tremendous downhill scorer. He's a very good offensive hub in the post, and he knows when to make an extra pass, or has a nice post game, or has a nice first step. He's a good shooter. And honestly, for Deni Avdija and what he cost last offseason, this was a phenomenal move by the Blazers front office because Deni is also under one of the best contracts in the NBA, making $15.5 million this year, and then it goes down every single year throughout the next 3 years. $14.3 million in 2026, $13 million in 2027, then just $11.8 million in 2028. A fantastic contract. Now, it was definitely surprising at the time that the Washington Wizards decided to move Deni Avdija, but their reasoning was they were going to get Deni Avdija's best years throughout their rebuild and throughout their dog days, and then they were going to eventually have to pay Deni Avdija when they were going to hopefully have to pay other players that mattered a little bit more, that they were going to be selecting high in the draft, a la Alex Carr and maybe Cooper Flag if they can get him here in the 2025 draft. So they decided to sell high on Deni. Obviously, maybe if they waited a year, they could have got a little bit more for him. And honestly, I feel like if they were actively shopping him a little bit more, they could have gone some other teams to come in with maybe better offers. But at least Bob Carrington had a very productive rookie season for this team. 9.7 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 40% from the field, 34% from 3, 80% from the free throw line. He's 6'4", he's so shifty, he's got a very good ball handle, and he's going to be a good 3-point shooter in this league. Reminds me a little bit of Emmanuel Quickley's rookie season as well, but it does feel like Washington made a nice selection here at 14 with a position of need. Now, Malcolm Brogdon was thrown in there, and they really couldn't flip him at the deadline. I don't think he was the best veteran guard for this team. I feel like Marcus Smart provided a better presence at that role later in the year. We'll see what that 2029 first-round pick can be. I'm going to give this trade for the Wizards a B. I just rather have Deni long-term over Bob Carrington, and that pick has such a TBD gray area that I really can't bump that grade up for them right now. And thankfully, the Wizards did make a nice selection at 14, because if they took a player that really didn't look as encouraging as Bub in his rookie year, this grade would have been a lot worse. It's crazy to see how this trade is aged 1 year later. This is the trade that sent Dyson Daniels, EJ Liddell, Larry Nance Jr., Cody Zeller, a 2025 first-round pick via the Lakers, and a 2027 first-round pick that's going to be most likely via the Bucks to the Atlanta Hawks in exchange for Dejounte Murray. Yeah, a lot of people thought at the time that the Pelicans got a nice bargain for Dejounte Murray. A lot of people thought that Brandon Ingram should have been in this deal going to Atlanta, but this is an easy A+ for the Atlanta Hawks. This trade looks better and better the more you look at it, just because Dyson Daniels fully broke out in a much larger role here in year number 3 with the Atlanta Hawks. He might win DPOY, he might win most improved. He averaged 14 points, 3 steals, led the NBA in that category, and had the most amount of steals since Gary Payton in the 90s, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 50% from the field, and 35% from 3, and is so much better of a complementary piece and a backcourt partner to Trae Young there in Atlanta than Dejounte Murray was over the last 2 years. And Daniels played this year under a $6 million salary. He's going to be making $7.7 million in 2026. Yes, he will get extended by the Atlanta Hawks, but you're okay doing so because he's 22 years old and he's an elite defender already, and he's only going to get better on the offensive end of the floor because he was becoming more aggressive this year. He really took strides as a playmaker, and he really just took strides as an initiator as well. The shot clock's winding down, Trae Young's not in the game. He was able to make something out of nothing when some guys are a little bit too passive in that moment, and I do believe he's going to be a legitimate long-term piece next to Trae Young for a long time in this league, and he blends so well with Zachary Sachet and Jalen Johnson over there as well. They also get the Lakers first-round pick this year, which is going to be in the mid to late 20s, but it's still something that they got for Dejounte Murray, who just didn't work out whatsoever in Atlanta. You get that future first-round pick. Maybe they bring back Larry Nance Jr. in the offseason, but just mainly getting Dyson Daniels and 2 first-round picks for Dejounte Murray is a home run trade for Landry Fields, Kyle Korver, and that Atlanta Hawks front office. I'm sorry, Pelicans fans, but I got to give this trade a D+ for Dejounte Murray. Now, this trade could still work out for them in the long term, but Dejounte Murray had a really bad first game with the New Orleans Pelicans. He got hurt, comes back 20 or so games later, and then unfortunately, after playing 31 games for the Pelicans in the 2025 season, tore his Achilles. And it's just the injury that scares me because he's 28 years old. It's going to take over a year to recover from that, and he's making over $30 million a year for the next 3 seasons. In 2026, over $30 million. In 2027, over $30 million, and has a $31 million player option in 2028. Hopefully, this trade grade can go up over the next year or 2, and Dejounte Murray can flourish in New Orleans. It's just hard to see that right now. Maybe our most win-win trade right now, it was just a player-for-player trade, and this was Josh Giddey being sent by the OKC Thunder to the Chicago Bulls in exchange for Alex Caruso. And this is a trade at the time I said was a win-win trade, and I liked it for both teams long term, and I think that take is aged very well, as Alex Caruso this year got off to a tough start offensively with the OKC Thunder, but gelled well over the course of the year. He was never going to average as many points as he did in Chicago due to his diminished role, and he was banged up this year, but still appeared in 50+ games, played around 20 minutes a night, averaged 7 points, 2.5 assists, and 3 rebounds, shot 45% from the field, 35% from 3, 82% from the free throw line, but more importantly, he played all defensive caliber defense yet again. He showcased why he's one of the best guard defenders in the NBA, one of the smarter switchable guard defenders, and is an elite point of attack defender, and I would not be shocked if he ended up on all defensive second team this year. The Thunder were the best defensive team in the league throughout the whole year, and Alex Caruso was a big part of that, and we're going to see why the Thunder acquired him 1 year later throughout their 2025 playoff run, where now they can trust him out there a little bit more as a shooter than Josh Giddey, but more so as a defender, and teams cannot hunt him in the pick and roll or in the half-court offense. So yeah, I'm going to give this trade an A for the Thunder. Now, they did extend Alex Caruso to a notable contract, where Caruso is going to be making $18 million starting next year, and that's going to go up all the way to $22 million in 2029. Maybe that contract isn't going to age the best, as he's 31 years old, and they're going to have to pay some other players on their team going forward, but if they win a championship this year, who cares? And then for the Chicago Bulls, they ended up getting Josh Giddey in this trade, who got off to a good shooting start for this team, and then he struggled leading up to the All-Star break, but he had an elite second half where it felt like every single night he was going off for a triple-double. He finished the year with around 14.5 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, and shot 46% from the field and a career-high 38% from 3. He's a restricted free agent this summer as a 22-year-old, and he's going to make a lot of money, I think, returning to the Chicago Bulls, and honestly, they should pay him. The Bulls should enter into a proper rebuild going into this offseason. They should bring in high potential wings and bigs, and Josh Giddey can benefit as just a leader and initiator for the Bulls, just kind of getting those guys their touches and getting them to their spots on the floor. And I think it's going to help the progression of Montas Buzelis as well. I know he's not a great defender. I know the shot could be inconsistent, but what else do you really have here in Chicago? I'm also going to give this trade for them an A. If Alex Caruso left for nothing, you would not have gotten any production in return for him, and that would have looked so much worse. Yes, you probably should have moved Caruso a year earlier. You could have got 2 future first round picks, but what if those first round picks were just in the 20s? I'd rather take a sure thing in Josh Giddey right now, knowing what he is. Next up, we had the New York Knicks and the Minnesota Timberwolves with an absolute shocker of a trade. We saw a major trade went down late in the 2023 offseason, Damian Lillard to Milwaukee. This basically happened even later because right before training camp started, the Knicks and Timberwolves agreed on a massive trade that was going to send basically Karl-Anthony Towns to the New York Knicks in exchange for Julius Randle, Donte DiVincenzo, and a 2025 lottery-protected Detroit Pistons first-round pick, which nobody really thought the Timberwolves were going to get this year, and that's not been the case. That pick is going to be in the mid-teens as the Timberwolves are making the playoffs in 2025. And that pick is going to help out the Minnesota Timberwolves grade, and I'll start off with them. I'm going to give this grade a B for them a year later. It was really tough trading a franchise legend who was that #1 overall pick in 2015, has basically been with you for almost a decade through the highs and the lows, so many coaching changes, even an ownership change basically, and he was a multiple-time all-star for you, and you traded him for Julius Randle, who could be a free agent in the 2025 offseason, and Donte DiVincenzo, who's a nice scorer that mainly comes off the bench, and a first-round pick that nobody thought was going to convey. But a year later, Randle was solid enough in this season. We'll see how talks with him in the Minnesota Timberwolves front office go in the offseason, because he does have a $30 million player option that he can opt out of. Knowing this trade, you had to realize that Julius Randle has not been a great playoff performer for the Knicks, but the Timberwolves' overall offense actually went up this year after trading away Karl-Anthony Towns, and Donte DiVincenzo is under a fantastic contract. They can maybe use that to get Kevin Durant if they wanted to this offseason, and he's somebody that can be a microwave scorer at any moment and is an elite three-point shooter, and it's really progressed well from his Nova days throughout Milwaukee, even dealing with the major injury, and has turned into a really good rotational player right now. And hey, that first-round pick could be something there at 16, 17, or 18. And for the New York Knicks, I'm going to give this a B+, because Karl-Anthony Towns was definitely the best player in that trade, and the Knicks defense, though, has taken a massive hit this year, and that's more so Mitchell Robinson being out for most of the year, and Isaiah Hartenstein leaving them for the Thunder in the 2024 free agency class. But Cat was an elite offensive player for the Knicks, and they desperately needed a center. He averaged 24 points, 13 rebounds, 3 assists, shot 52% from the field, 42% from 3, and 83% from the free throw line. It did feel like in the clutch, Cat was a little bit inconsistent, maybe having poor shot selection, or at sometimes really some boneheaded foul calls. But what else could the Knicks really have had this year? I don't think the season would have gone very well if Julius Randle was their starting center for most of the season. I do miss Donte DiVincenzo on my Knicks. I do hope in some way, shape, or form the Knicks can end up with DiVincenzo once again, and we can really have that Nova Knicks core of Brunson, Hart, Bridges, and DiVincenzo. That may never come, but yeah, I'm going to give this Knicks grade a B+. I know Cat's contract gets very expensive, but they got a very good player here for I don't think his proper value. Next up, we have a sign-in trade here that I will incorporate in this video, and that was the 3-team trade that sent DeMar DeRozan from Chicago to Sacramento. Basically, the Chicago Bulls received Chris Duarte and 2 future second-round picks when they traded DeMar DeRozan way too late. At least they got something in return. The Kings received DeMar DeRozan, and the Spurs received Harrison Barnes and a 2031 unprotected unprotected pick swap between Sacramento and themselves. So we'll just rattle off the Spurs and the Bulls quickly. For the Spurs, I'm giving this an A. You took basically a Harrison Barnes contract that really wasn't going to restrict you in any means of your future plans over the next 2 years, and you basically got involved in this trade, gave up nothing, and got an unprotected 2031 pick swap between you, and you have Victor Wembanyama, so I don't think you're going to be that bad in 2031, and the Sacramento Kings. And who knew a year later or half a year later they were going to end up trading away De'Aaron Fox, but who knows how the Kings are going to look in 2031. That could be very valuable to San Antonio. For Chicago, I'm giving you a C. You should have moved DeMar DeRozan in the 2023 offseason, or just try to get anything for him at the 2024 deadline. Easier said than done. At least they got something for him, but I'm still giving them a C because it really wasn't much. And for the Sacramento Kings, I'm actually going to give them a C+ because after trading away that unprotected 2031 swap to get the cap space to sign DeRozan, they gave him a 3-year, $70 million contract that's going to be paying him over $25 million until his age 37 season. Now, DeRozan wasn't a bad player this year for the Kings. He averaged 22.5 points, 4.5 assists, and 4 rebounds a night. He shot 48% from the field, 33% from 3, and he's somebody that was available yet again. He played over 75 games for the Kings this season. He had some really good games. He had few bad games this year for the Kings, and is still a good player. I just don't think it really was a good fit here in Sacramento, so I'm giving them a C+ just because you mortgaged that unprotected 2031 swap. I mean, I also think they really handled the 2023 offseason in a bad way because they paid Harrison Barnes, they paid Domantas Sabonis, they had cap space that offseason after getting off that Richaun Holmes contract. I just don't think they really built a good roster that worked on the floor by bringing in DeRozan with Fox at the time and Domantas Sabonis, and now we basically have the Chicago Bulls 2.0 with DeRozan and LaVine on the perimeter there. And the last trade we're going to talk about was one that was kind of a head scratcher at the time, and it's kind of funny to look back on. And this was a deal that the Detroit Pistons sent out Quentin Grimes to the Dallas Mavericks in exchange for 2 2028 second round picks, a 2025 second round pick via the Raptors, and Tim Hardaway Jr. So actually that 2025 Raptors pick is going to be in the top 10 of the second round. It's going to be around pick 37, and they got a couple future second round picks. And Tim Hardaway Jr. has been a good veteran for the Pistons this year, but I would just love to see Quentin Grimes with this Detroit Pistons offense. And hindsight is 2020, but Jaden Ivey goes down. Quentin Grimes would have a much larger role over there. Maybe Quentin Grimes was never going to work out in Detroit, so I will give this trade for the Pistons a B- because I don't really want to mess up anything that happened with the 2025 Pistons because they were such a special team this year. I would just rather have Quentin Grimes long-term than Tim Hardaway Jr., and I don't think that's a hot take. Man, Nico Harrison was cooking. He really was. You got Kyrie Irving on a discount in that 2023 season. You traded down, got off the Davis Bertans money to take Derek Lively in the 2023 draft. You aced the 2024 deadline, getting Gafford and PJ Washington. You make it to the 2024 NBA Finals, and you get Clay and Najee Marshall in free agency, and you trade for Quentin Grimes, who looked so good at times this year for the Dallas Mavericks and really stepped up at times when Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic were injured. This year for the Dallas Mavericks, he appeared in 47 games. He shot 46% from the field, 40% from 3, averaged 10 points. He got his confidence back, and he looked like exactly how he did in 2023 when he was a breakout sophomore for the New York Knicks. So for that trade alone, I'm giving it an A, but it's just a tainted A with an asterisk because they traded away Quentin Grimes for Caleb Martin at the deadline, and we'll get to that in the 2025 trade deadline grading video because that one, it's not as worse as the Luka Doncic trade. But Nico, what were you on at the 2025 deadline? What changed? So yeah, that is gonna be for me. I hope you guys did enjoy. Let me know how you would grade some of these trades 1 year later. Do you agree with what I said? Do you disagree with what I said? Let me know down below. Make sure you are subscribed so you can be alerted when I come out with my grading the 2024 offseason signings 1 year later and the 2025 deadline trades half a season later on this channel. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.